Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले समते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी इति नामिने. नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले समते राधानाथ महाराज इति नामिने. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद. नामचर दास ठाकुर की जय, भक्ति देव तुलसी महारानी की जय, श्री यमुने महारानी की जय. हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे राम राम हरे हरे. हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे राम राम हरे हरे. हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे राम राम हरे हरे.
हरे कृष्ण
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे राम राम हरे हरे. हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे राम राम हरे हरे. हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे राम राम हरे हरे. चैतन्य दास मोरी चैतन्य दास मोरी तुलसीदास दास. हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे राम राम हरे हरे. हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे राम राम हरे हरे. हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे राम राम हरे हरे. हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम हरे हरे.
हरे कृष्ण वास्तकल्पतरुभ्यस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय. श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय. May know who all joined this morning. Thank you everyone for joining the chanting. It was very beautiful. May know who is there on the call.
Hare Krishna Mataji, this is Balavrinda.
Hare Krishna Balavrinda, thank you so much for joining and chanting very nicely.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Shri Guru and Gauranga and all assembled devotees. Yashamati from Chicago.
Hare Krishna Yashmati Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nice to hear your voice early morning and mid morning, Mataji. I think next week you are giving, right? If I'm
Yes,
not wrong.
Mataji.
I am waiting for your class, Mataji.
Yeah, but I don't know.
You will be doing awesome job, Mataji. You have brought up your children so nicely, so definitely you will be doing it.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Neetu from Baltimore.
Hare Krishna Neetu Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Mataji, for joining every day and giving your recitation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Bal Vrinda's mother, Dandavat Pranam to you and all Vaishnava. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki jai. Dandavat Pranam Bal Vrinda Gopi. Yashamati Mataji, when we are doing Krishna Katha, the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, Srimati Shri Radharani, Lord Krishna, Acharya Gan and Six Goswami is with us. So we are eagerly waiting for your association. Dandavat Pranam Mataji.
Dandavat Pranam Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Vrinda Gopika Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining, chanting and encouraging everyone. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Is there anybody who would like to introduce themselves?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Sudevi from Virginia. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Sudevi Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call and giving us invitation.
Dandavat Sudevi Gopi.
She's really a Mataji for all of us. She's very, very good girl.
Dandavat Mataji.
Dandavat Sudevi. Okay, is there anybody who would like to introduce themselves?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. This is Nitya Narsimha Mataji, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Srila Gurudev Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna, Nitya Narsimha Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for joining each and every call, giving your association. We are eagerly waiting to hear from you, Prabhuji. So before I start the recording, is there anybody who would like to introduce themselves? Okay, let me start. Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. Today is Friday, and Friday we have Srila Prabhupada Lilamrta, part 1, book 1 we are doing now. Before I get into the, I hand over the call to the speaker, I wanted to read Srila Prabhupada Code for today. Today is July 8th. I am your spiritual father, and Krishna is your spiritual husband. A girl can never forget either her father or her husband. Letter to Jadurani, July 8th, 1967. So this is a very, very favorite quote for all the Matajis in the material platform. But again, in the spiritual platform, we are all, as a soul, we are all, Matajis, only Purusha is Krishna. So this is a very, very beautiful quote for today that Srila Prabhupada is saying that we should remember the Krishna and Guru. That's it. Our life is successful. And before further ado, I would today we are very fortunate to have His Grace Nitya Narsimha Prabhu to enlighten us on the topic of Srila Prabhupada Lilamrta, chapter number 34. Before I hand over the call to Prabhuji, I would like to give a brief introduction about Prabhu. Give me a second. Nitya Narsimha Prabhu is a disciple of His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Guru Maharaj. Currently, Prabhu is pursuing Bhakti Vaibhav course from Mayapur Institute, module 2 in progress. He is from Hyderabad. Now he's working in Mathura Desh, Muscat as oil planning manager in oil and gas. In oil and gas. Then Prabhuji is in Muscat from 2000, and his wife is Sukanta Gopi Devidasi, and his son is Krishna Reddy, and his son is pursuing computer science engineering, and also his daughter is in 9th grade. Thank you, Prabhuji, for a wonderful association. And a part of this introduction, I would like to say Nitya Narsimha Prabhu is very, very nice, and he's like always there in the call with video on. He writes the notes, he asks a beautiful question. Very, very nice, Prabhu. So encouraging to all of us, seeing you every day on the call. Thank you so much for your association and your wonderful questions. And please take over the call, Prabhu. Hari Bol.
Thank you very much, Mataji, for brief introduction. First of all, my obeisances to all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis assembled here. And I am indebted to Bhakti Sangha group because I liked all the programs in Bhakti Sangha. That is the reason I don't want to miss any class in the Bhakti Sangha, because there are exalted devotees, Maharajas giving the classes. So thank you very much once again for all the organizers to consider me and to give this opportunity to purify myself. If anything I say good, it is all glories to my Guru Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada. If anything is some mistakes and error, it is my ignorance, and treat as your brother and forgive me. Thank you very much, Mataji. So I will start with the Jai Radha Madhav Kirtan, then I will go to my class sessions. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. यशोदानंदना व्रजजन रंजना यशोदानंदना व्रजजन रंजना यमुना तीरावनचारि यमुना तीरावनचारि जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे नित्य गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल जय जय प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव जय जय गुरुदेव श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय श्रील गुरुदेव की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की जय ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः हुकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरम् नमो ओम विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नाम्ने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशकारिणी जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे वंदेहम श्रीगुरुं श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवां च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पदां सहगना ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितं च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपीशा गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते ताप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी विश्ववाणी सुते देवी प्रणमामि हरि प्रिय. So once again, thank you everyone, especially Her Grace Vinita Mataji to give this opportunity to speak on Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrta. Today's assignment is given as a chapter 34. So the chapter name is Jet Air Parivrajatacharya. So before starting the today's session, author quote by Srila Das Maharaj is the author, and he says that massaging Prabhupada was like new initiation. From my side, it was completely spiritual, a static exchange, the essence of the personal servant's worship of the spiritual master. So with his blessings, I will move on to the today's session. So here we can see that how Srila Prabhupada is moving by Jaladuta, by flight, by road. So that is what is the meaning of Parivrajatacharya. That means the devotee, the saintly person who moves each and every where to give the love of Krishna to one and all. And someone asked Srila Prabhupada, why do you keep traveling across the countries? And Srila Prabhupada, with a great smile, he said, to stop traveling in 8.4 million species of life. So that is how the by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, by the mercy of Guru Varga, we have come into Krishna consciousness. Especially, I am so fortunate enough for coming into Krishna consciousness. So we can see how Parivrajatacharya moves each and every corner of the world just to give love of Krishna to one and all. So with this note, I will continue with today's overview. So in May 1971, Srila Prabhupada prepared for extensive world travel. Of course, I was not born in 71. I born in 72, but it's all in 71. So initially, Srila Prabhupada went to Sydney on May 9th, 1971. Then he moved to Calcutta on May 13th. And then in June, he wanted to visit Moscow and then further Paris. So here we can see how Srila Prabhupada in a short span, despite of his ripened age, Prabhupada went to so many countries around the globe just to give love of Krishna, to liberate the fallen conditioned souls like me. And here we can see, although his itinerary was indefinite, his general plan was to travel widely for a few months, then tour the US, visit London, and then return to India. He now expanded his field to include the whole world. So Srila Prabhupada initially not envisioned that one fine day he will become the founder Acharya for International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Just on the instructions of his Guru Maharaj, that he has to give the message of Krishna, translate the books in English and give it to one and all. So that's what Srila Prabhupada, keeping the mood of his Guru Maharaj, he want to visit around the globe. And Srila Prabhupada's traveling was in the mood of Narada Muni. You can see how the Srila Prabhupada purports nourish us. It is like just by reading sloka and translation, we cannot understand. We may understand only 20% of it, but the 80% of essence, 80% of rasa, amrita is in the purports of Srila Prabhupada. And in the mood of Narada Muni, Srila Prabhupada is to travel across the globe. And that's why it is the duty of a mendicant to have experience of all varieties of God's creation as Parivrajatacharya, or traveling alone through all forests, hills, towns, villages, etc. to gain faith in God and strength of mind as well as to enlighten the inhabitants of the message of God. A sannyasi is duty bound to take all these risks without any fear, and the most typical sannyasi of the present age is Lord Chaitanya, who traveled in the same manner through the central Indian jungles, enlightening even the tigers, bears, snakes, deers, elephants, and many other jungle animals. So here we can see our predecessor Acharyas, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is none other than the combined form of Radha and Krishna. He himself set an example how a devotee should lead a life. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he used to travel through the Jarikhanda forest, earlier they used to call Uttar Pradesh, so Jarikhanda, there he used to chant the name of Krishna. Krishna, 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 Hey. Krishna, 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 Rakshamam. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to take the name of the Lord Krishna, even the tigers and the snakes, deers, elephants, all used to dance, and tears used to come from these animals. So just imagine how is that possible? Because in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord says that Sarva Dharman Paritaja Mamekam Sharanam Vajam Aham Tam Sarva Pape Mukshishyami Masucha. But we conditioned souls, we say that why we have to surrender unto you, my Lord? We are okay, we are managing, we are adjusting. But actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is in the combined form of Radha and Krishna, in the mode of Radharani, he wants to give this love of Krishna to one and all, not only to the human beings, even to the animals. So that we see in the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yet Prabhupada was traveling as a mendicant missionary Parivrajacharya, having already attained the advanced stage wherein the pure devotee resides in Vrindavana and chants Hare Krishna incessantly. He was now traveling for the good of the whole world. He, like Narada, was traveling to all parts of the world. So here we can see that how our acharyas, how Srila Prabhupada, who is the founder Acharya for International Society of Krishna Consciousness, taken the mood of Narada Muni, taken the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is preaching one and all, each village and town, inundating and giving the love of Krishna to fallen conditioned soul. So here for 2 days Prabhupada stayed and then he went to Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur. The house was large and luxurious with thick carpets and large mirrors. But when Prabhupada learned that his hosts were meat eaters, he refused to eat anything except fruit and milk. Even though his disciples offered to cook for him, his disciples, having traveled throughout Malaysia, considered eating at the homes of meat eaters permissible, as long as the devotees could prepare the prasadam in pots not used for cooking meat, but Prabhupada's standard was high. So Srila Prabhupada established the regulative principles, and one of them is no meat eating, and also no eating onion garlic. So when Prabhupada went to the Kuala Lumpur, the host was a rich person. He was having everything, but he was a meat eater. So Prabhupada could not take anything. He managed with the fruits and roots. So that is how is the regulative principle Srila Prabhupada given to us. So we also have to think that many times it happens that when we go to some other unknown places, how we will manage. So here we can see from our Acharya. And further, Prabhupada lectured at the Kuala Lumpur town hall and the Lakshmi Narayana temple, mostly to Indians. So there is a Lakshmi Narayana temple. So Srila Prabhupada given the class on the spiritual talk there in that temple. Look at the United Nations, he said, they are adding more and more flags, and there are only more and more wars. So Srila Prabhupada used the analogy how we say that the United Nations is solving the problem, but here Srila Prabhupada says that flags are adding and at the same time wars also increasing. So this Krishna conscious movement will be the real United Nations. Prabhupada had brought with him slides of response activities, and he had one of his disciples narrate a slideshow. So Srila Prabhupada, he, along with his disciples, he given the presentation also that what Krishna consciousness means and what it ends. And that's how Srila Prabhupada preached in the Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur. So one day evening, Prabhupada talked with the doctor. He was a gynecologist, and they were talking about the birth control and all. So Prabhupada explained its sinfulness, and he gave an example. If someone poisoned the air in the room, he and the doctor were sitting in, and they would have to leave the room or die. So similarly, Prabhupada explained, contraception means to poison the womb, denying a soul its rightful shelter. So we all know that the gynecologists, they are specialists in child care and everything. So here Prabhupada is discussing with them. So even though contraceptive methods and so many technologies have improved, but Srila Prabhupada is telling that so much of sinful activities are happening. So he is enlightening the gynecologist also. Like Prabhupada's previous post, the doctor ate meat. Although the devotees had been pushing them to give it up, Prabhupada was gentle. Try to stop eating meat. He urged. It was Ekadashi, and Prabhupada decided to fast from all food, again showing extreme reluctance to eat in the home of the meat eater. So again, further, Srila Prabhupada emphasizes that we should always avoid meat eating, and also don't take food from the non-devotees. But at the same time, he was very humble in that. It's not that commanding or something. He was very humble, and he was following the Ekadashi Vrata. And then moves to Sydney. Replying softly, Srila Prabhupada said he traveled everywhere, just as a salesman travels everywhere. A salesman looks for customers wherever he can find them, and Prabhupada was traveling, searching for anyone intelligent enough to accept his message. There is no difference in coming to Australia, he said. The governments have made a demarcation. This is Australia, but we see everywhere as the land of Krishna. So this is the mood of a pure devotee. It doesn't matter which land it is. Srila Prabhupada is telling that, okay, this is barricaded as Australia, but Srila Prabhupada says that it is a land of Lord. Everywhere Krishna is there, inside also Krishna is there, outside also. That's how when we sing Narsimha Stotra, Narsimha Arati, we say Ito Narsimha, Parato Narsimha. What does it mean? Lord is there here also. Lord is there inside also. Lord is there outside also. Lord is there everywhere. So that was the mood of Srila Prabhupada. And further, the devotees explained the difficulty in making chapatis. So here we know that when we follow the 4 regulative principles, when a devotee is becoming sincere and serious in devotional service, we need to cook ourselves. So here Srila Prabhupada is training the disciples. There was no flame on their electric stove. The chapatis always came out dry or raw or burned and never puffed up. The excuse only annoyed Srila Prabhupada. However, who showed exactly how to make chapatis that puffed up every time, even on an electric burner. So then he taught the cooks a simple vegetable dish, advising as he cooked, after he left the kitchen, the devotees tried the chapatis again. They wouldn't puff. It seemed a magical art only Prabhupada knew. So we all know that when Srila Prabhupada, he went in the Jaladuta, he cooked himself in the boat, in the Jaladuta, and he was having simple dishes and simple grains to cook rice and dal. So that's how even here the disciples are giving excuse that the like electric stove is not giving heat and all, but in the same stove Srila Prabhupada has shown the example how to cook chapatis nicely. So Srila Prabhupada, that's why the acharyas, gurus, they live life what they say. So here Srila Prabhupada trained the disciples, and further Srila Prabhupada brought Radha and Krishna deities to the Australia, and he wanted to install these Radha Krishna deities in the Australia. And Prabhupada loved these deities. They had presided over the Bombay pandal, and they hadn't been on stage yet kept. Actually, these deities came for Bombay temple, but somehow that Pandal program was not arranged. So Prabhupada kept these deities, and he took these deities when he went to Australia. Then he had brought them from Bombay to Malaysia to Sydney, and now he proposed to install them in the fledgling ISKCON center. But the infinite purity of his heart and the depth of his determination to risk anything for the Lordship Sri Radha Krishna are unfathomable. Srila Prabhupada's activities are most grave and they are deeper. So here, even Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he writes that whatever Chaitanya Charitamrita he has written, just by the mercy of the previous Acharya. So that is how the mood of the great exalted devotees like Srila Prabhupada. So he had a concern that how these deities can be served, because in the Western world, they are malichas, they are meat eaters, and they don't have the rules and regulations. But still, Prabhupada is training the devotees. And when Prabhupada came to the temple to perform the initiation ceremony and deity installation, the devotees weren't ready. So we all know that how we also got the mercy of our Guru Maharajas. So they come and pour this mercy, even though we are not qualified, but they give the initiations only on small flowers, decorated almost bare altar, and the devotees are not made garlands for the deities. So they don't know. Actually, when Prabhupada brought this Radha Krishna deities, there were no flowers, there is no altar setup. So Prabhupada was a bit concerned. While devotees hurriedly strung garlands for the deities, Prabhupada performed the initiation ceremony. There were 15 initiates in all. To some devotees, he gave first initiation, to some second initiation, and to others both first and second. See how Prabhupada was merciful. He wanted to give the initiation, and then he lovingly bathed the forms of Radha and Krishna and performed the fire sacrifice. While dressing the deities, he remarked that their clothes had been poorly made and that the devotees should make new ones immediately. He named the deities Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. So even though devotees made some dresses, but they were not proper, so again, Srila Prabhupada told them to bring the new set of clothes. Then here, Vaibhavi, he initiated everyone in the temple. Anyone who was there, even one boy who had just joined that week and had only come across Krishna consciousness the week before, and people who weren't living in the temple, just anyone who was there and somehow serving, he wanted Krishna consciousness to be established in Australia. So he just initiated everybody. He gave the first, second initiation because he wanted to install the Radha Madhav deities. So how the great acharyas, how Srila Prabhupada was merciful. He know that people are not qualified, but still he trained, he given diksha to them. 15 devotees got initiation. Even a person who was new, he also got initiated. So such is the mercy of the acharya. So our movement, Krishna consciousness, is teaching that do not think that it is a sectarian religion. We are making people God consciousness. It doesn't matter to what religion you may belong. If by following the principles of religion, one becomes advanced in God consciousness, that is the first class religion. That is our motto, and we are preaching all over the world. So here, again in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord is telling that Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. What is the actually real religion? So Prabhupada is telling that Krishna consciousness is teaching. It is not a sectarian religion. It's telling about the God consciousness. And Prabhupada was so merciful that whatever religion you are following, you follow, but keep Lord in the center. To that extent, Prabhupada was allowing. Therefore, he is requesting teachers here to make the student from the beginning God consciousness. Then their future life will be very peaceful, prosperous, and hopeful. So that's how Srila Prabhupada is addressing. Prabhupada also agreed to speak in Wayside Chapel, a center in downtown Sydney, ministering the to drug addicts and prostitutes. So how Prabhupada is not only to the common people he is giving even this seminars or the preaching of Krishna consciousness to people who are drug addicted, even the prostitutes. So here we can see that how Srila Prabhupada was merciful and audience challenged the Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada had explained that the chanting of the holy names of God was the only way to actually help people. But the people challenged, what good actually is this chanting of Hare Krishna? So we know that when Srila Prabhupada went to America, New York, he was sitting beneath the tree and chanting the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Iti Shodashakam Nam Kali Kalmash Nasanam Mato Paratarapaya Sarva Vedeshu Drishyate. So Srila Prabhupada, whatever in the Purana Shastras it is mentioned, the holy name he is delivering to the whole world. So that's how Srila Prabhupada emphasized on the Krishna consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada wrote in his preface that although he was known for starting the Krishna consciousness movement in America, actually the original father of this movement is Lord Krishna himself. Giving all credit for his own achievements to his spiritual master, Prabhupada said that the only qualification he himself had was that he had tried to present Bhagavad Gita as it is, without adulteration. So this is very, very important, that how we need to follow our Guru Varga. That's why Sadhu, Guru and Shastra, all three are connected. It is not that I follow one, I will not follow two. No, when we follow Sadhu and Guru and Shastra, then it becomes, that's why the Bhagavad Gita as it is become world renowned. Why? Because there are so many 500 commentators before Srila Prabhupada written as it is. But when the purports, the devotees, the people, when they deep dive into the purports, their hearts transform. So instead of satisfying his own personal material senses, a person has to satisfy the senses of the Lord. That is the highest perfection of life. So people ask, what is the highest perfection of life? When Srila Prabhupada is telling that it is not that we do the sense gratification for our own. No, the senses should be engaged in the service of the Lord. The Lord wants this, and that's how the Lord is expecting, and he demands it. One has to understand this central point of Bhagavad Gita. Our Krishna conscious movement is teaching the whole world this central point, and because we are not polluting the theme of Bhagavad Gita as it is, anyone seriously interested in deriving benefits of studying the Bhagavad Gita must take help from the Krishna consciousness movement for practical understanding of Bhagavad Gita under the direct guidance of the Lord. We hope, therefore, that people will derive the greatest benefit by studying Bhagavad Gita as it is. We have presented it, and if even one man becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, we should consider our attempt a success. So we know that how Srila Prabhupada started his journey, and is not expecting that whole world become devotee. He's telling that one pure devotee can change the face of the world, and that's how Srila Prabhupada is. And he's telling that even one person also becomes a Krishna conscious person, devotee, then the mission is successful. That is how Srila Prabhupada is giving the message to us. And further, Lord Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita that no servant is more dear to him than one who teaches Bhagavad Gita to the devotees. And Prabhupada, in all his activities, whether writing a preface, lecturing to the prostitutes or drug addicts, teaching a disciple to cook chapatis without burning them, or planning grand project yet to come, was always teaching Bhagavad Gita, and therefore was always the dearest servant of Lord Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita 18.69, Lord Krishna says that Nacha tasman manusheshu kaschin mi priya kritamaha bhavitana chame tasman anna priyataro bhuvi. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. And that's how Srila Prabhupada is the dearmost devotee and pure devotee of the Lord. That's how he can transform the people's heart. He had given an analogy. Although in a material life a man must first become a highly qualified lawyer before sitting on the judge's bench, in Krishna consciousness a sincere devotee is first allowed to sit on the bench to become a Brahmana, and later by the mercy of the holy name and by the spiritual master he becomes qualified. The devotees in Sydney, however, were particularly immature, and Prabhupada made an extraordinary request of Radha Gopinath, now I am leaving you in the hands of Malichas. I cannot take the responsibility. You please guide these boys and girls and give them the intelligence to worship you very nicely. So here, how Archa Vigraha, many people says that, where is the Lord? Is the Lord is there here? And here Srila Prabhupada is praying to the deities that I cannot train them. Now I am going. You, Radha Gopinath, you train these disciples. So how is the mood of Srila Prabhupada? How is the mission of Srila Prabhupada? And that's how, and what an analogy is given. Like, if you want to become a lawyer, you have to pass all the graduations. Then only he will be treated as a lawyer or a judge. But here in the Srila Prabhupada's movement, ISKCON Krishna conscious movement, anybody, any Tom, Dick, Harry can come and he can become a great devotee of the Lord. And that provision, that opportunity is given to one and all. That's why Srila Prabhupada says that ISKCON is like an umbrella where everyone can be accepted and given shelter. So that is the mood of Srila Prabhupada. Then further, Srila Prabhupada from Australia, he comes back to the Calcutta. Prabhupada arrived just in time for 10-day Calcutta Pandal festival. On his orders, Giriraj Maharaj and Kamal Krishna Maharaj had come to organize the festival, just they had one in Bombay. Prabhupada had written to His Holiness Jayapatak Swami Maharaj, president of ISKCON Calcutta. So in 1971, His Holiness Jayapatak Swami was the president of Calcutta. So here, with the help of Giriraj Maharaj and Kamal Krishna Maharaj, they arranged a big pandal, like how they are done in the Bombay, and it was great success. So in the Sankirtan festival pandal, if a very big kitchen arrangement can be made, then we shall distribute prasadam daily. Try to make this arrangement. Puri, halwa, kichri, whatever can be arranged as much as possible. Kamala Krishna and Giriraj have all these ideas. So here Srila Prabhupada is advising that, and also we all know that in Mayapur, at least for few kilometers, no one starves from the hunger of prasadam. So that's how one day Srila Prabhupada is watching from the lotus building, and some children, some beggars, they were eating the remnants from the thrown plates. Then Prabhupada was literally crying, and from that day he told all the disciples that, see, henceforth at least so many kilometers, nobody should be starving. You should give prasadam to all. So that's how the prasadam distribution is very famous in ISKCON, and so many devotees, they dedicate, they give charity to distribute the prasadam. And the further, and that time Naxalites were there, terrorists were there, and they were threatening Srila Prabhupada. Just imagine, at the age of 69, Prabhupada is actually, he is supposed to take rest, but he is making the world tour, and that time the Naxalites, terrorists, they are threatening Prabhupada that, because in the Calcutta and all the communist parties there, so we all know that how they behave. They are like basically atheists. They don't believe in the Lord Krishna. But here there so many threatenings are coming to Srila Prabhupada. But what happened? These young communist terrorists who had been active in Calcutta during Prabhupada's visit of 1970 had never disturbed him until now. Their tactic was to approach prominent businessmen in their homes or in street and then cause them into the cooperation with the Naxalite political objectives. So these Naxalites, basically, they want their rights. So Srila Prabhupada convinced them, and he told that keeping Krishna in the center only will solve all the problems. So that's how even the Naxalites became calm when they spoke to Srila Prabhupada. And again, fly or die, like that threatenings are coming. You either go from here, otherwise you die. Read the note Prabhupada received. He informed the police, who regretted their inability to help. the whole of Calcutta, they said, was in terror of the Naxalites. Prabhupada, however, refused to be intimidated. He would not fly. Even if they were to attack him, he said, what better way or Vaishnava to leave his body than while preaching the glories of the Lord. See how Srila Prabhupada, even he is ready to leave the body also, because such is the this people mentality. Srila Prabhupada said, okay, I am in the service of Srila Prabhupada. If they kill also, fine. It is in the pleasure of Radha Madhava. So how Srila Prabhupada and our Guru Maharaj, they take the risk. They will keep their life in the risk just to please the Lord Krishna and please the devotees. So here in the Brahma Samhita, it is mentioned, Chintamani prakarasatmasu kalpa vriksha laksha vrateshu surabher abhipalayantam. So Prabhupada started singing this, and that by hearing this, all the Naxalites, they went away. Prabhupada's voice rang over the powerful loudspeaker system. Appearing uninterested in the crowd, depending only on Krishna, he began singing prayers from Brahma Samhita. And within minutes, everyone became quiet. Those who wanted to leave left, and those who wanted to stay sat down. The crowd subdued it. So that is how where Srila Prabhupada was fully dependent on Krishna. So when he sung this, then some people they left, and people who were interested, they stay back. So several more fly or die notes came, and Naxalites returned the next night, threatening again to burn the pandal. Call them, Prabhupada said. So Prabhupada said, call them. I will meet with them. The devotees thought it is unsafe, but Prabhupada insisted. In a small room behind the pandal, Prabhupada spoke with the hostile youths. They were angry and disrespectful at first, but Srila Prabhupada, after Prabhupada explained, they became calm and quiet. So such is the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Then Achyutananda Swami, the last night of the 10-day Pandal program was the grand finale with over 40,000 people attending. I just stepped out to get a sugarcane juice. The Pandal was completely packed when I left, but when I got outside, I saw rivers of people flowing through the 4 main gates into the Pandal tent. So here, when program just started, so Achyutananda Maharaj Swami, he went to bring the sugarcane, but by the time he came back, so many thousands of people are there in the Calcutta Pandal program. So he further, standing next to Prabhupada that night in the Calcutta temple, Prabhupada, he said, someone put Krishna's flute in background. Prabhupada looked, it was background. Krishna is all powerful. He said, turning to Achyutananda Swami, he can play from the back end also. So when Krishna's flute was put wrongly, so Prabhupada is making a joke that yes, Krishna can even play with the back end also. And further, Srila Prabhupada was still striving for a plot of land in Mayapur. So we all know now the Mayapur Chandra temple is built by the vision of Srila Prabhupada. Having abandoned the idea that his god brothers in Mayapur might help, he had been working through Bengali friends in negotiating with Muslim farmers in Mayapur. On returning from Australia, Prabhupada had sent Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj with orders not to come back until he had purchased land. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj's mission was successful, and after 6 days he returned to Prabhupada in Calcutta, having purchased 9 bighas, 3 acres of land. So this land was purchased in 1971, and Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj and His Holiness Jayapada Swami Maharaj, they were the instrumental in getting this. Conceiving the value of Mayapur was difficult for the devotees. However, one devotee journeyed from Calcutta to see the new ISKCON property, and on returning, asked Prabhupada, what are we going to do there? It's just a big empty field. Nothing is there. So, because there are no factories and cars, Prabhupada replied, therefore you think there is nothing to do? But we are going to chant Hare Krishna in Mayapur. We will build a big temple there, and all the devotees in the world can go out and chant Krishna in the place of Lord Chaitanya's birth. So this is what was the mission of Srila Prabhupada, and this is how the temple is now just means partially open, but the balance portion is also getting ready. And this is the vision of Srila Prabhupada. By the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, by the mercy of the Acharyas, this great project is getting successful. So you will be glad to learn that we have purchased about 5 acres of land in Mayapur, the birth site of Lord Chaitanya, and we have proposed to hold a nice festival there from Janmashtami day for 2 weeks. At that time, the foundation stone will be set down. I wish that all our leading disciples come to India at that time. There are 50 branches, so at least one from each branch will attend the function. So Srila Prabhupada invited all the devotees who are like presidents and administrators. They told that we should come to commemorate this land which we purchased in Mayapur. Then Srila Prabhupada is planning to go to the Moscow, Russia. I am very encouraged to see your enthusiasm for preaching the message to Russian people, and your idea to send letters with the help of Dr. Bernhard is very good. He's a big scholar and he's also appreciate our movement. So if you arrange a tour of Russia for me, I am prepared to accept. Let us see what Krishna desires. If we go to Russia with our World Sankirtan Party, I am certain that it will be very much appreciated, and people will see the real peace movement in chanting process, chanting the holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So try for it. So this, when Srila Prabhupada want to go to Russia, it was very difficult during that time. They were not allowing the visas, and they were not allowing because again, Russia is also communist. People are there. And Srila Prabhupada coached a disciple, Krishnadasa, to best cultivate the Russian Indologists. You can ask them some questions. He's training the Krishnadasa. What is the ultimate goal of life? What is your ideal ultimate goal of life? What is the difference between animal and human life? Why is the religion accepted by all kinds of civilized societies? What is your conception of the... So all these questions is training so that they accept. My life is dedicated to spreading this Krishna culture all over the world. I think if you give me a chance to speak about the great Krishna culture and philosophy in your country, you will be very much appreciate this simple program with great profit. This culture is so well planned that it would be acceptable by thoughtful men throughout the world. So Srila Prabhupada is appealing that if you can give me opportunity, then whole world can become the Krishna conscious devotees. So that is how the mood and mission. And we also know that His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, when he wanted to come to India, he was not getting all the facilities, but he requested in the border security that just give me one opportunity to enter so that I can make so many devotees, so that the security allowed. So that's how is the mood and mission of the great acharyas. Having preached a year in the Eastern Hemisphere, Prabhupada was eager to return to West, and he planned to fly to Moscow and on to Europe for Prabhupada and his traveling companion. Shamasundara and Arvinda were the companions. They would take a 5-day government-controlled tour with every activity planned by the Soviet tourists. And that's how Captain Lal was also there, the pilot of the flight to Moscow, considering Prabhupada an important passenger, and came back to visit him during the flight. So even Captain was so close to Srila Prabhupada. They spoke of Prabhupada's movement, his chances for lecturing in Moscow and of Bombay, where Prabhupada was trying to purchase land. Captain Lal invited Prabhupada to cockpit, and Prabhupada came and sat behind the captain, asking technical questions about the equipment and the flight. And Prabhupada and Captain Lal agreed to meet again. So how Srila Prabhupada, he is cajoling with the pilot, and the pilot also become a friend, and that's how he's asking the technical questions of the flight. And Prabhupada remained peaceful and regulated, keeping his daily schedule. He was rise early in the morning, and he used to do the walking, and he used to translate. And then Prabhupada appreciated the spareness of the traffic, some trolleys and bicycles, but mostly pedestrians. As he walked among the old ornate buildings, he saw elderly women housing the wide streets. A good practice, he said. Russian people appear to live structured, regulated lives, much more so than Americans. So Srila Prabhupada globed across all the countries. So he is telling that Russian peoples are very disciplined. were fertile for Krishna consciousness, but devoid of spiritual sustenance, they appeared morose. Srila Prabhupada is telling that they are very good people, but because of the communists, they are not coming out. And he used to interact with the professor Kota Waski. He was also an atheist, but when he come in contact with Srila Prabhupada, there was a dialogue between Prabhupada and the professor. Prabhupada is saying, among these Puranas, the Srimad Bhagavatam is called the Mahapurana, and he told of his own translation of Srimad Bhagavatam, the ripened fruit of the Vedic desire tree. He would show how some volumes to the professor if he was interested. So we know that in the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, first chapter, third verse, Nigama kalpa taror galitam palam sukamukad amrita drava samita pibata bhagavatam rasamalaya mur aho rasika babu bhavuka. So that the Jews, when Srila Prabhupada went to America, he took the few cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam and he wanted to give this fruit which is juicy to the whole world. And that's how the conversation is happening between the professor and Srila Prabhupada. Hinduism, Prabhupada interrupted, it is very complex topic, and they both laughed. Professor acknowledged that Hinduism was more than a religion, it was a way of life. But Prabhupada explained that the name Hindu was actually a misnomer. The real term to explain Vedic culture was Varnashrama. Briefly, Prabhupada described the four orders, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. The four Varnas and Ashramas, Srila Prabhupada is explaining to Kota's king. You told, and he is telling, you have told that in any society there are four divisions, but it is not so easy to distinguish. For instance, one can group together different social classes and professional groups into four divisions in any society. There is no difficulty. The only difficulty is, for instance, in socialist society, in our country and other social societies, how can you distinguish groups and workers? So he is asking, and Srila Prabhupada is answering. Prabhupada welcomed the professor's question. Although grounded in Soviet socialist vested interest, Prabhupada considered the professor not so much an academician as a pawn of the Soviet university system. Much as one political power tries to understand its advisory, the professor was inquiring into Indian culture so that his government might penetrate it with their own ideology. Behind Professor apparent interest in Vedic culture, Prabhupada could see the view of the Communist Party, a view diametrically opposite to Vedic philosophy. Nevertheless, Prabhupada tactfully continued to present Krishna consciousness in accordance with Parampara, and he tried to convince Professor. So here Srila Prabhupada is telling that time, place, circumstances, we need to hear Professor is a communist, he is atheist, but Srila Prabhupada is giving the knowledge of Krishna consciousness very politely. And quoting Srila from the Bhagavad Gita, a Shastra with which the professor was familiar in his own way, Prabhupada described Lord Krishna as the creator of the four divisions of society. Professor immediately contracted with the theory of Soviet scholars that the Varnashrama divisions were a recent addition to Vedic culture. He also resisted his opinion that division of Varnashrama had no meaning with the socialism. So professor again is asking question. There is a great distinction between socialist society and all societies preceding socialism, because in modern Western society, you can group all social and professional classes in the particular class division, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishyas, and Shudras. But here we have no Vaishyas, because we have administrative staff in factories, managerial staff, you can call them Kshatriya. So he is giving his own logic, but Srila Prabhupada is thrashing him left and right. That is stated, Kalo Shudra Sambhava. In this age, practically all men are Shudras. So Srila Prabhupada is telling indirectly that you are a Shudra. That is stated. But if there are simply Shudras, then the social order will be disturbed. In spite of your state of Shudra, the Brahmanas are there. That is the necessity. So if you do not divide the social orders in such a way, then it will be a chaos. That is the scientific estimation of Vedas. You may belong to the Shudra class, but to maintain the social orders, you have to train some of the Shudras to become Brahmanas. It cannot depend on the Shudras. So Srila Prabhupada is convincing him that that Shudras only doesn't matter. Of course, in Kali Yuga, everyone is Shudra, but he's telling that Brahmanas are also required to run the society. And Srila Prabhupada gave his standard analogy, comparing the social body to the human body. All the parts are necessary, not only the legs, but the belly, the arms, the head. Otherwise, he said it will not work properly. As long as this is going on, there will be some disturbance. So Srila Prabhupada is telling him, modern society's missing point, Prabhupada said, was an understanding of the purpose of human life. They do not know what is the next life. He said there is no department of knowledge or scientific department to study what is there after finishing this body. So again, dialogues are happening between Professor and Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada says that, Professor saying that politely complains, Swamiji, he said, when the body dies, the owner also dies. Prabhupada marked his reply. So Prabhupada is giving the response. No, Prabhupada quickly replied, this fact you must know. Why is there no department of knowledge in the university to study this fact scientifically? That is my proposition. That department is lacking. It may be as you say, it may be as I say, but there must be a department of knowledge. Now, recently, a cardiologist, a doctor in Montreal and Toronto has accepted that there is a soul. I had some correspondence with him. He strongly believes that there is a soul. And Srila Prabhupada scientifically is also proving, and he is giving the papers of the cardiologist. And further, Prabhupada continued to build his argument. We accept knowledge from authority. The professor contracted that everything had to be accepted on the basis of empirical evidence. But then in the mid-sentence, he stopped arguing. And have you many branches of society in the world? Prabhupada began speaking about ISKCON with its 64 branches all around the world, and of how he was going next to Paris, where his disciples had recently acquired a new center, and of how the American boys and girls especially were joining his movement. He told the 4 prohibitive rules: no meat eating, no illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling. And of the books he had published, as Prabhupada described the workings of his movement. And that's how Srila Prabhupada is giving the introduction of International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And when Prabhupada returned to comparing Krishna consciousness to communism, he concluded that the two philosophies were in agreement and both stressed surrender onto authority. Then the devotee surrendered to Krishna. So finally, the professor got convinced with the Srila Prabhupada. So such is the Srila Prabhupada's genius. And further, professor is asking what extent we should surrender. Prabhupada says that the fullest extent. And you have to surrender to the society, for instance, is asking. Prabhupada says, yes, to the whole people or to the state or king or government or whatever you say, the surrender must be there. It may be different. So that's why repeatedly in the 18th chapter, Srila Prabhupada says that what is surrender? And Krishna is telling Sarvadharman Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tom Sarvapape Bhyo Mokshishyami Ma Tucha. So he's telling that when you surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then only everything is perfect. Otherwise, everything is imperfect. So again, Professor said the only difficulty is we cannot have surrender to government or to a king. The principal difference is of surrender to king, who is a single person or the whole society. Further, Prabhupada says that no, that is change of color only. But the surrender there, the principle of surrender is there. Whether you surrender to monarchy, democracy, aristocracy, or dictatorship, you have to surrender. That is the fact. Without surrender, there is no life. It is not possible. So we are educating person to surrender to the Supreme, where from you get all protection. Just like Krishna says, Sarva Dharman Parityaja. So surrender is there. No one can say, no, I am not surrendered to anyone. The difference is where he surrenders. And the ultimate surrender object is Krishna. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Bhavanam Janmanamante Jnanavan Mam Prapaddante. After surrendering to so many things, birth after birth, when one is actually wise, he surrenders to me. So Srila Prabhupada is giving the sloka from the Bhagavad Gita and is convincing. But surrender had to be accompanied by revolution. He said, the French Revolution, for example, was a revolt against one kind of surrender. Yet the revolution itself was another surrender to the people. So it is not enough to come full stop, the professor argued. So that's how further argument is happening. And Srila Prabhupada said, yes, the surrender will be full stop when it is surrendered to Krishna. That is full stop. No more surrender. Other surrender you have to change by revolution. But when you come to Krishna, then it is sufficient. You are satisfied. Just like I give one example. A child is crying and changing laps. Oh, it has not stopped. But as soon as the baby comes to the lap of its mother, so Prabhupada gives an example of a child crying, and when it goes to mother's lap, become. So similarly, when we surrender to Krishna, then everything gets. Then further Prabhupada says that full satisfaction. So this surrender, the changes will go on in different categories. The sum total of all the surrender is to Maya, material illusion, but the final surrender is to Krishna, and then you will be happy. So after only 3 days, Prabhupada's mission in Moscow seemed finished. The meeting with professor over. What was left? The government would allow nothing else. It had not allowed him to bring in books, and now he had been refused the opportunity to speak publicly. Foreigners were not to talk with Russian. He could go nowhere unless on an accomplished tour. So with no preaching and no prospect, he stayed his cramped room taking his meals. So Srila Prabhupada, when he went to Russia, so there was no much encouragement was there. So Srila Prabhupada was sitting in his room, getting massage from the disciple and taking bath and whatever, because food also, they were not able to get vegetarian food, and disciples are bringing, and that's how Prabhupada is saying that there is no hope. So one day, two young men, one of the son of Indian diplomats stationed in Moscow, loitering near the Red Square, when they saw an amazing sight. Out of the usual regiment routine or city traffic, a tall young man with a shaved head, long reddish ponytail, and flowing white robes approached. It was Chandra. So when Chandra was going in the market, he met one diplomat. He was looking, and then he asked her, "Why don't you come up and meet my spiritual master?" So this is how we also come to Krishna consciousness. Some devotees helped us, some devotee nurtured us, and they told, "Come, there is a program going on, some sannyasis are come." So that's how Shyam Sundara is inviting one person, and Prabhupada, and he met Prabhupada. When they arrived, they found Prabhupada sitting on his bed and aglow and smiling, because Prabhupada was not having any hope. But when he saw this Arvind, this new youth which Shyam Sundara brought to Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada was very happy. "Come on," Prabhupada said, and the three of them sat at Prabhupada's feet, turning first to Narayana. So this person's name is Narayana. Prabhupada asked his name and his father's occupation. Narayana liked Prabhupada and offered to bring him green vegetable, his father being highly placed at the Indian embassy. So Narayana's father was working in Indian embassy, so he arranged some fruits and vegetables. So further, Ivan was interested even more than his Indian friend, and Prabhupada began explaining to him the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. While Narayana helped by translating, Ivan inquired with respect, and Prabhupada answered his question, teaching as much basic information about Krishna consciousness as was possible in one sitting. Prabhupada explained the difference between the spirit soul and the body, described the soul's eternal relationship with Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He spoke of Bhagavad Gita, of his network of temples around the world, and his young man and women disciple all practicing Bhakti Yoga. So Prabhupada opened the heart and is giving this knowledge to that boy. Prabhupada mentioned his desire to preach in Russia, which was a great field for Krishna consciousness, because the people were open-minded and hadn't been polluted by sense gratification. He wanted to introduce Krishna conscious literature in Russia through a library or a reading room, or in whatever way possible. Krishna conscious philosophy, said, should be taught to Russia's most intelligent people. So Prabhupada is telling that Russian people are very intelligent, but because of government restriction, it would have to be done discreetly. Devotees would not be able to sing and dance in the street, but they could chant quietly. So that's how Prabhupada is singing and very quietly, and kirtan, and that's how he's convincing the devotee. And then further, I was talking to Krishna was like a hungry man's eating a meal. Prabhupada gives an analogy. When a person is hungry, then only he knows the value of the meal. So after several hours, however, he and his friend had to go, they would return the next day. So Shyamachandra began spending time with Ivan and Narayana. So first he met Narayana, then he met Ivan. So that's how the expansion started. And very intelligent and eager to know what was going in and outside the world. He was fond of Beatles. Prabhupada told him of his association with George Harrison and John Lennon. Ivan and Shyamachandra had a long talk about the ambitions and hopes of young people outside Russia. And Shyamachandra explained to him how Krishna consciousness was the topmost all the spiritual path. Shamsundra also taught him basic principles of Bhakti Yoga, such as chanting prescribed number of rounds, and give him his own copy of Bhagavad Gita as it is. So this was the great hope Shamsundra got, and he given his own Bhagavad Gita copy to the Ivan. Srila Prabhupada brought the moment of Lord Chaitanya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself had predicted that the Sankirtana movement would go to every town and village. Yet for the hundreds of years, that prediction had remained unfulfilled. So Srila Prabhupada, however, in the few years since his first trip to America in 1965, had again and again planted Lord Chaitanya's message in one unlikely place after another. And of all the places, this was perhaps the most unlikely. During a brief government supervised visit to Moscow, he had planted the seed of Krishna consciousness within the Soviet Union. It was like a needle, and everyone and everything connected with him was like the thread that would follow. So that's how Srila Prabhupada put a seed. Now we can see that in Russia, so many exalted devotees are there. So author gives the analogy that when a needle is there, the thread is there, then we can garland it. So that's how Srila Prabhupada is given this Krishna consciousness to the Russian devotees. Then again, Professor remarks that Prabhupada's stay in old-fashioned hotel would not prove very interesting, but Prabhupada, unknown to Professor, was transcendental to Moscow. So this is something we can see in the life of Srila Prabhupada. He was simple in heart, he was simple in inside, simple outside. Whatever he speaks, that he walks. So that's how is that's why they are called, pure devotees are called walking temples. So Srila Prabhupada, as a Parivrajika Acharya, he went to the so many places in the world, and he transformed the conditioned soul. And further, Srila Prabhupada, when he came back from Russia, he writes that you wanted to see the manuscript of my lectures. Therefore, I am sending here with the introduction to the lecture. And if you so desire, I shall be glad to send essays on this subject matter. So Srila Prabhupada is giving the topic Vedic conception, scientific values, and knowledge. And that's how Kamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj writes the letter to the this professor. And then finally, Srila Prabhupada from Russia, he comes to the Paris, and on June 25th, 1971, Prabhupada said that the house in the Paris suburb with their attractive fence yard were excellent, but everything was being wasted for sense gratification. Although such a French gentleman may have such a first-class house, garden, wife, bank, and car, he has no spiritual knowledge. Therefore, he would always remain attached to his first-class position, and at the end of his life, his great achievement would lead him to take birth as a cockroach or a rat or a dog within that same home. So here we know that Paris is such a beautiful place, but when Srila Prabhupada visited that, everything is there, but they are in the full sense gratification. Nice bungalow, nice house, everything is there. And Srila Prabhupada is telling that if everything is there, if we are in sense gratification, then we have to take as a birth again as a cockroach or a dog or a rat. And Prabhupada says that Hari Vilasa, how he thought the temple preaching was faring. Hari Vilasa said he thought it would be successful, but it might be a good idea to make extra income by starting. So Hari Vilasa is one of the disciples, and he is telling to Srila Prabhupada that if you make business, then the success will come. And Srila Prabhupada slaps him. Your business is preaching. Prabhupada said, if there are some householders, they can do business. And he is telling to him that it is not that business will help. Business where you have to, your business is to do preaching. And that's how the preaching moment, Srila Prabhupada's moment is preaching moment. And Prabhupada and his party arrived at the temple. They found the devotees eagerly waiting for Prabhupada's morning Bhagavatam lecture. But there was no time. Prabhupada had to leave at once for the airport. He was returning to America. So with this note, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Anantapati Vaishnavan ki jai. So thank you very much, Mataji. Over to you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for such a beautiful, beautiful class. Very nice, Prabhuji. You explained in very detail, and in between you added your analogies, and you are quoting Srimad Bhagavatam slokas, Bhagavad Gita slokas. It was very nice, the understanding that you have. I really like that one analogy that Srila Prabhupada was giving, that when needle is there and thread is there, you can nicely make a garland. So that is very, very nice. That Srila Prabhupada has given everything, that now we should expand it. We should try to preach and give everybody Krishna, and that way we can please Srila Prabhupada. Very, very beautiful, Prabhu. So many points, very detailedly explained. Thank you so much. You covered the chapter very nicely, Prabhu. Very grateful to you. So I open the forum for question and answers, realizations. Please unmute yourself and ask.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranams. Very, very nice presentation, Prabhuji. Everything was so clear and I understood a lot, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you very much, Mataji. All your blessings, Vaishnava's blessing. Nothing is mine. It is all my Guru Maharaj's mercy. Thank you very much. If any anomalies, mistakes, please forgive me. I will try to work on that. Thank you. Great.
Is there anybody having any more realizations, questions? Kumari ki Mataji, want to speak, Mataji? No. Yeah. Mataji, you're trying to speak. You can unmute yourself, please.
Before I couldn't do it. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Very, very nicely you have explained and presented Srila Prabhupada and Prabhupada's philosophy and how he followed and how he wants his disciples and followers to follow. Thank you very much. Very, very nice. Very, very nice. It makes me very happy. We need more and more preachers to follow Prabhupada qualities and all this. Thank you. We like to hear more from you, Prabhuji, in the future whenever is possible. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Komadiki Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Gandharika Mataji. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. I have some chat comments. So here Yeshumati Mataji is saying very nice presentation. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Chinmay Vrajapriya Mataji is saying beautiful class. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Sukusakari Mataji is asking she wants a PDF or a PPT, whatever you have, Prabhuji. You can share with me or with Mataji. We will share it in the group if somebody wants to. And we also save the PPTs for the future classes or somewhere. If you could send it, we will save in the drive.
Sure, Mataji. I'm indebted to all the Bhakti Sangha group. You are all seniors in all respects, and you have given me opportunity. Thank you. It is for my own purification. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Nitya Narsimha Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for coming and presenting on Srila Prabhupada. It was just so wonderful. And, your voice itself, it just keeps on booming and we can, feel that enthusiasm, as you're talking about Mayapur Dham and how Srila Prabhupada went to Australia and his preaching and what he spoke about Russia too. So it was just wonderful, very nice session. So happy to hear from you. You always have such wonderful questions in class, and although you know so much, you are there to attend every session. So we are very grateful for your association, Prabhuji, and please come and please present more often. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you for feedback. Thank you very much.
Your voice is very low, Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Mataji.
Yeah. Yes, Prabhuji, whatever Indu Mataji was saying, that your enthusiasm shows when you're speaking, everything is clear and it's coming from your heart. So nice. The emotions that you're showing when you're speaking about Srila Prabhupada is very, very nice, that we could see that how much love you have for Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Yeah, Vrinda Gopika Mataji, would you like to speak? Please go.
Yes, please. Thank you, Prabhuji. Koti Dandavat Pranam. I agree with Indulekha Gopi and our Vinita Gandhari Mataji. Prabhuji, जब आप प्रेजेंट कर रहे थे आपका पीपीटी, तो उसमें बहुत मतलब इंथुसियाज्म था और बहुत हृदय से आप सच्चे हृदय से परफॉर्म्स कर रहे थे. और it is very hard to explain in 2.5 minute, but I try to explain all the points. First, you explain about the initiation, 15 Vaishnava initiation and Brahman initiation, and still myself, we are not qualified for initiation, Prabhuji, but our Gurudev is given the initiation, so that initiation लेने के बाद you have to take a responsibility to serve Srila Prabhupada. ऐसा नहीं है कि हाँ अभी initiation हो गया, finished. No, that is the first day. You have to take more and more responsibility. That much I learned from your class. And then you explain about the quality. People don't have quality. People don't have qualified for initiation, but still Srila Prabhupada has given a initiation. And one thing is touch to heart, Prabhuji, that you explained that Srila Prabhupada जब अमेरिका से इंडिया आ रहे थे तो उन्होंने बताया कि हे श्री राधा गोपीनाथ, I know that I am not qualified. I know that ये सब वैष्णव को इनिशिएशन दिया है, पर उसकी टेक केयर आप करना. मैंने इनिशिएशन दिया है पर मुझे कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं है, और मैं आप उनको क्वालिफाइड बनाना. So that is touch to heart, Prabhuji. Then Australia temple and teach roti. Especially I have seen H.H. Bhakti Charu Maharaj and H.H. Tamba Krishna Maharaj is learning roti so enthusiastically. I have seen one video. Then God conscious ये तो बहुत इजी है डिओटी को कृष्णा कॉन्शियस रहना, बट इट इज वेरी हार्ड टू गिव कृष्णा कॉन्शियस टू एब्रोड वैष्णवा जिसने कृष्णा और श्रीमती श्री राधा रानी को देखा भी नहीं था. दे आर सीइंग श्री जगन्नाथ बलराम सुभद्रा रानी एज अ डॉल. सो श्रील प्रभुपाद सेड मैं तो नहीं दे सकता कृष्णा कॉन्शियस, बट आप श्री राधा गोपीनाथ और अवर आचार्यगण और सिक्स गोस्वामी और श्री भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर को प्रार्थना करते कि आप उनको कृष्णा कॉन्शियस देना. तो ये टच कर गया प्रभु. कॉमन पीपल जो सेमिनार में ड्रग लेते थे, ड्रग एडिक्टेड थे, उनको भी प्रभुपाद ने सेमिनार दिया. चैंटिंग ऑफ होली नेम. देन अमेरिका न्यूयॉर्क में जो प्रभुपाद छोटे से एक ट्री के नीचे बैठ के सबको कृष्णा मतलब हरे कृष्णा महामंत्र करते थे, और वहां से फिर बड़ा न्यूयॉर्क टेम्पल और फिर ऑल ओवर वर्ल्ड में टेम्पल बने. हाउ वी नीड. एंड श्री प्रभुपाद बोलते थे कि आई एम डूइंग सेवा फॉर दास दासानुदास. एंड यू एक्सप्लेन सो नाइसली अबाउट साधु गुरु एंड शास्त्र एंड अवर गुरु वर्गा. सो all credits goes to our guru varga. Whatever seva they are given, whether it's cooking and whether it's preaching or whatever seva is given by Srimati Shri Radha Rani, our Acharya Gan Mercy, then and we should engage all our senses in the service of Lord Krishna and Srimati Shri Radha Rani. कैसे कर सकते हैं प्रभु जी? जब हम हमारे स्पिरिचुअल मास्टर को अच्छी तरह से सर्व करते हैं, लाइक अवर वृंदास मदर विनीता गंधर्वी एंड एच जी प्रीति विलासिनी, एच जी ललितांगी गोपी एंड प्रभु जी स्पेशली एच जी सुख सागरी माता जी. जब हमें वो श्लोका टीच करते हैं प्रभु जी, व्हेन वी आर डूइंग वेदर इट्स कुकिंग फॉर श्रील प्रभुपाद एंड श्री गौरनीता, और वेदर वी आर विथ अवर पेरेंट्स, बट वो मन में वही चलता रहता है. सो दे आर द प्योर डिओटी कि उनके मुख से हम वाणी सुनते. ऐसा ही जब आज आपकी मुख से वाणी सुना, माय डॉटर स्टॉप द मीटिंग एंड हियरिंग श्रील प्रभुपाद अमृता. सो बहुत आज आपकी वाणी टच कर गई प्रभु. वन बिकॉज यू आर अटेंडिंग ऑल क्लास वेरी enthusiastically. वन प्योर डिओटी चेंज द वर्ल्ड. श्रील प्रभुपाद ने बताया था कि and then planning all over the world project and helping by H.H. Jaipataka Maharaj, H.H. Tamal Krishna Maharaj, H.H. Bhakti Charu Maharaj, H.H. Giriraj Maharaj. So they all work hard for this all over world project. And Arshna Prabhupada is explained about the Arshna Vigra. And Prabhupada said that मैंने ये सब लोगों को ट्रेन नहीं किया है, पर श्री राधा गोपीनाथ, आई हैव फुल फेथ इन योर लोटस फीट दैट यू विल ट्रेन all of them. That is touch to heart प्रभु जी. keep Krishna in a center. जब वो नक्सलवादी बहुत hard time देते थे in May 1971 in a May 31 date, that time Naxalwadi is given so much hard time in Calcutta. That time Krishna said to all senior Vaishnava that we have to full faith in lotus feet of Lord Krishna and Srimati Shri Radha Rani. And then कलकत्ता में जो बहुत बड़ा पंडाल हुआ था, जैसे इन मुंबई में हुआ था, तभी एच गिरिराज महाराज ने, एच तांबल कृष्ण महाराज ने स्पेशल फोकस किया था प्रसादम पे, हलवा पूरी एंड दाल राइस सब्जी, so that by eating prasadam they become a sincere Vaishnava. And so it's a teamwork. And political party is given a hard time. That time also Prabhupada says, I learn a lesson, Prabhuji, how much patiently Prabhupada is teaching the opposite party, and he has a full faith in the lotus feet of Shri Radha Gopinath and Shri Radha Shyam Sundar. And Prabhupada and even in a Juhu temple also given us so much hard time. That time also Prabhupada is fight so patiently with all of them. And then you explained about Achyutananda Swami. There is a 14,000 people. They serve sugarcane juice and they serve all the Vaishnava, and in a big pandal they serve a prasadam and preaching program in a Calcutta. And then finally Srila Prabhupada announced that Jayapataka Maharaj is the temple president of Calcutta and Shridham Mayapur Dham also. And that is a dream of Shridham Mayapur Dham. Not 1, 2, 3, 4 times Prabhupada is failed to purchase the land in Shridham Mayapur Dham, and finally he get the land by the mercy of Shri Nityananda and Gauranga. And finally now a big temple will be there in a 1 month before, please forgive me, maybe before 1 or 1.5 years. And Prabhupada disciple श्रील प्रभुपाद ने ये जन्माष्टमी का जो टाइम आया था, तभी सीधा मायापुर धाम में ये कंप्लीट होना चाहिए प्रोजेक्ट. सो डे एंड नाइट duties are working hard, and Prabhupada is given us so much respect to Russian devotee because they are so sincere and well disciplined. They follow all the instruction of Srila Prabhupada. Still I have seen in a Shridham Vrindavan Dham with H.H. Indradhanu Maharaj how sincere they are in a bhakti. Prabhuji, they teach us a lesson that what should our mood to serve Srila Prabhupada. And राधानाथ महाराज जब आए थे, एच.एच. राधानाथ महाराज, तो उनको बहुत तकलीफ हो रही थी. तभी महाराज ने बताया था कि मुझे एक चांस दीजिए, मैं आपके कंट्री में ये स्पिरिचुअलिटी स्प्रेड करूंगा. तो everybody, whether it's H.H. Jayapataka Maharaj or H.H. Radhanath Maharaj, H.H. Bhakticharu Maharaj or H.H. Tamal Krishna Maharaj or H.G. Shyam Sundar Prabhuji, H.G. Malti Mataji, all the H.G. Janki Mataji, all the Srila Prabhupada disciple work hard, just blindly follow Srila Prabhupada instruction. They all are Manjaris and Gopis, Prabhuji, and we and then spirituality to all her. They all come to give a Krishna consciousness to all of us. हम सब पतित जीव है. एंड प्रभु जी आज आपने बहुत अच्छी तरह प्रेजेंटेशन किया. जैसे लग रहा था कि सीनियर ब्रह्मचारी इज एक्सप्लेनिंग एंड सिटिंग एट होम, एंड वी फील दैट सिटिंग इन श्री राधा गोपीनाथ, एंड वी आर हियरिंग श्रील प्रभुपाद अमृता. द टीयर्स इज नॉट स्टॉप. हाउ सिंसियरली यू प्रेजेंट दैट हम देख सकते हैं कि आप कितने सिंसियरली ये छोटे से बाल वृंदा और मुकुंदा के साथ आप बैठ जाते हैं हम सबके साथ. यू आर so sincere and senior Vaishnava. Still you sit with all of us and learn sloka so sincerely. So koti dandavat pranam to your sincere seva. And last that thread and sui and dhaga ka jo tha wo touch kar gaya Prabhu ji. Already Vrinda's mother explained. And Jews that Srila Prabhupada explained about the sincerity of Russian people, and Shri Bhagavatam, that is also touched to heart, Prabhuji, that Srila Prabhupada's श्री भागवतम लेके गए थे और उसका जो एसेंस था, जूस था, वो सब उन्होंने ऑल ओवर वर्ल्ड में स्प्रेड किया। श्रील प्रभुपाद से लोग कीजिए, गोपीनाथ कीजिए, कोटि कोटि दंडवत प्रणाम टू योर सिंसियर सेवा प्रभु जी। हरि हरि गौरांगा, eagerly waiting your class प्रभु जी, श्रील प्रभुपाद मुक्ता, and yes for Shri Bhagavatam and Shri Bhagavad Gita also. Please give your association regularly. Dhanvat pranam behalf of all Vaishnava. Hare Krishna. Thank you प्रभु जी.
I am indebted to all the Bhakti Sangha devotees, Mataji. मेरा कुछ भी नहीं है, मेरा गुरु महाराज का है। और आप जो बोले हैं, it is like hot potato. Whatever is good, it is Guru Maharaj. Whatever मेरा मतलब mistakes है, वो that I have to improve. Thank you, Mataji, for your feedback. Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol. Thank you so much, Vrinda Gopika Mataji. As always, your summary helps a lot, and Prabhuji, your class is also wonderful. And Shivani Mataji also says that very nectarian class. Please give your association more often. Thank you, Shivani Mataji. And Narayani Mataji, thank you, Prabhuji, for a nice presentation. She's saying that. And thank you, everyone, for joining the class and giving your association. It encourages all of us. And is there anybody last minute realizations, questions, comments?
1 second realization is रुवाटे खड़े हो जाने वाला आज का प्रेजेंटेशन था। श्रील प्रभुपाद अमृता की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, और आचार्य गण 6 गोस्वामी की जय। थैंक यू प्रभु जी फॉर योर association and blessing.
Okay, is there anybody last minute wanted to say anything? What do you want to say?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. This is Bhalavendra. I really like your presentation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol, Balavendra and Sudevi, they are the senior. You are the senior most devotees. I don't know. I have to learn from you. You are so, from the childhood, you are Krishna conscious. Very, very, I am indebted to all the devotees assembled in Bhakti Sangha. Thank you, Balavendra.
Hare Krishna Bhavatarni Mataji, would you like to speak something, Mataji? Yeah.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Bhavatarni Mataji. Would you like to... Yeah, please go ahead, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Nitya Narsimha Prabhuji. Thanks for the...
Yeah, Mataji wanted to thank you. I think her internet is not good, and today only morning I was speaking to her. Actually, she messaged me seeing your poster. I think you both know each other. She was saying she was glorifying you, how sweet you are.
She's my mentor, Mataji. She's my mentor.
Oh, I didn't know that you know both each other, and she was messaging me, oh, Nitya Narsimha Prabhu is giving class. I would definitely come, and he's such a sweet and humble devotee. She was very happy that you are giving class. I think she wanted to say thank you, but then her internet is not supporting.
Thank you, Mataji. Yeah.
Okay, we would like to close the call here if there is no more realization. What do you want to say?
Please give us Bal Vrunda.
I want to say that Prabhuji's class was very nice, and I liked all his poems. And he always joins Wednesday classes very attentively.
Yeah.
Thank you, Balavendra. You are so inspiring to me.
I would like to offer my obeisances to Prabhuji and all the Vaishnavas assembled on the call. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Ananta koti Vaishnav vrinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitya Narsimha Prabhuji ki jai. Thank you everyone.
Thank you,
once again
Mataji.
for joining.
Hare Krishna. Yeah.